Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. This video tutorial uses a lovely stamp from Nellie's Choice and features the My Sweet Petunia Precision Glue Press. You will love this glue press with its fine tip glue nozzle that is perfect for gluing small and intricate pieces. So let's take a look at the supplies that we're going to be using today. We will start out with the Lavinia Multifarious Smooth and Supreme cardstock that I've cut to 4 5/8 inches by 3 1/8 inches. We will then cut out a frame just from regular cardstock, and this one is cut to approximately 4 3/4 inches by 3 1/2 inches. We will then use a cardstock for our base card. This one is an 8 1/2 by 11 that I've cut in half and then folded that piece in half. The stamp that we're using today is the Nellie's Choice. This is a idyllic floral scenes and it is called Tree with Swing. For our basic stamping, we're going to be using the VersaFine Claire Nocturne. For our colors, we're going to do two different methods today. We're going to use the Distress Inks and the Sweet Poppy watercolor pens. For the Distress Inks, we'll use Carved Pumpkin, Wilted Violet, Chipped Sapphire, Pine Needles, and Rustic Wilderness. And then, as I said, especially for our little landscape areas and the trees, we'll be using the Sweet Poppy watercolor fine tip brushes. These are really awesome to use. We will also be using what I spoke about earlier, the My Sweet Petunia Precision Glue Press. And this is that glue press. And this is just a wonderful, wonderful piece. And I'll show you how to use that. But as you can see, it's got a very, very tiny nozzle on it. You will also want to go ahead and have a couple of blending brushes on hand. And then I also have some small Sweet Poppy detail stencil brushes. And these are very, very small and they're very good for getting into small, tight areas. We will also be using I'm going to be using just this little cutout for my sentiment here. If you've got a Cricut or a Silhouette and want to cut out your own words, or if you've pre-bought some words that are already cut out for you, any of those would be perfect. And then to go ahead and do our project, when we do our stamping, I have got a stamping platform. I like to use one that I have put a sticky grid down on. This allows me to put my card down and not have to worry about messing with magnets. All right, so let's get started working on our project. So what we're going to start out with is going ahead and stamping our project first. So I'm going to go ahead and get out my stamping platform, and we will go ahead and place our cardstock piece onto our stamping platform. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this piece is a little bit smaller than what I normally do. I cut this piece to 4 5/8 by 3 1/8 inches because I wanted it to fit the size of my stamp. What I normally do is a little bit larger, which is 4 3/4 by 3 1/2 inches. So today we will actually be doing just a slightly smaller card so that our stamp fits completely on that. So I'm going to take my card and place my stamp on the surface of it, on my press here, I'm on my stamping platform here, and doing this so that I've got my design that's going slightly off of the edge of my card, because I do want it to fill up and be completely on the card. So now I will ink up my stamp, And I'm going to go ahead and zoom this out just a little bit so that we're not too tight on my work surface here. And then I'm just going to ink up my stamp really well. Now, for this particular card, I really like to have a good strong image, so most likely I'm going to go ahead and do a second impression. But let's see how it goes with our first stamping. I like to get those details to be really sharp and clear. Alright, so now we're going to stamp that down and give a good press. Give the card a chance to absorb our ink. And I actually think that's a very lovely impression. So we will go ahead and use this and not have to do a second stamping. So with that, we can now go ahead and remove our card from the stamping platform and set our stamping platform aside. All right. Now I'll go ahead and zoom back in just a little bit so you can get a little closer look as we start working on our project. Now, for the background, let me go ahead and just kind of show you and get my stamp pieces out of the way here. So you can see that I have started out with the sunlight just right over the horizon line. And because this is such a detailed area, this is where I'm going to go ahead and use my Sweet Poppy detail stencil brush. So what I'll do is I'll take the Distress ink, a carved pumpkin, and I'm just going to go in and brush that in around my pieces because we're going to go back in and color them. So I don't really want to just go solid over them with a blending brush. Our colors will cover up some of this background part, but I don't want to put too much of it on top of any of our other things. This also allows me to go in between in the smaller places, and also will allow me to go up and over the edge of our little mountain scene here, with getting our sun rays that are coming up with the orange part without having to have it go everywhere, with a little bit more precision, which is what this great little detail blending brush and stencil brush does for you. It gives you just a little bit more control over the area. Okay. So now that we've just got that little bit of the sun coming up there, we're going to go ahead and go in and put in the rest of our sky. And we're going to go to the Wilted Violet. Now we can go ahead and use our regular size blending brush for that particular color. So I'm going to take my Wilted Violet, and I'm just going to sweep it across right above, and maybe even blending just a little bit over our carved pumpkin to give that next little layer of the sunrise or sunset, whichever you prefer, however you prefer to look at it. I like to look at this as being a beautiful, lovely scene as the sun's coming up in the morning, going and sitting out on the swing, watching the sunrise. All right, so it may be a little hard to see with this light of a color, but just get our Wilted Violet in there for that second phase. And then we'll move on to the Chipped Sapphire. Now with the Chipped Sapphire, I want to start out very light and gentle Let me show you on our sample here. So very light blue right here, and then get darker as we get to the top. This just kind of helps to show that the dawn is coming out, but there's still just a little bit of dark sky with stars in it yet to go and brighten up. Now I'm beginning to do the darker blending up here closer, right at the very top of the card. And then I just slightly rub over, just very lightly with the ink that's already left on it, just to kind of get the colors to blend just a little bit. All right. Now the final step that we want to do for our sky here is to put a little bit of the stars in. So what I'm going to do is, let me quickly, I think I put my paper towels over there. We're going to very lightly spritz the top of our card there. We'll cover that up so that we can get a little bit of the, just a light little star effect. So I'm going to take a piece of paper towel and just go ahead and cover up part of that card and only have the very top part. And then I'm going to do just a little bit of light spritzing with my spray bottle. Let it sit for just a second and then dab that water off so that we get just a little bit of that look of the stars still being at the very top of the sky there. All right, so now we have got our background color set and we are ready to begin filling in on the coloring of our more detailed areas. So the first thing that we're going to go ahead and color in is going to be our hills. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two different ways that you can do your coloring. And one of the ways that I really love to do is to just take my distress inks and actually do more or less a painting of the area that I want to use. So I'm going to scoot this over just a little bit so you can kind of see the white work surface here that I've got here. And I'm just going to put a little bit, this is the Rustic Wilderness. I'm just going to put a little bit of that down on my work surface. Then I'm going to spritz some water so that I've got water here to work with on my work surface. I'm going to take my paintbrush and dip that into the water and then pick up some of the color. And then I'm just going to lightly paint the hillsides with this little bit lighter green color. This is a really nice, quick way to add some color, because you can just dip your brush and just paint it on pretty quickly and pretty easily. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and wipe that up and move on to the pine needles. And the reason I'm doing the pine needles is just to give it a little bit more dimension and a little bit more depth and shadow. So we'll do the same thing we did with the Rustic Wilderness, and we'll put a little bit of the color down on my work surface, grab some water, dip it into the ink, and then just add a little bit of shadowing kind of down there where the landscape meets each other, just to give it a little bit more of a realistic and in-depth look. And just add a few little dashes here and there. Give that what we need. Okay, now if you wanted to at this point, you can do the rest of your work doing the same exact process by dipping your ink onto a surface and then painting it on. But I also wanted to go ahead and show you the Sweet Poppy watercolor pens because these are really wonderful pens to use too. So let me go ahead and move this back over and get out the pens. So I've got picked up some colors here. What I'm going to start out with is doing the field. So I'm going to take the lightest kind of a tan color that I have, and I'm just going to brush that lightly over to get a nice base down where the fields are. This is a really nice, quick way that you can color in and still kind of have that watercolor look to your project. And it goes on pretty quickly. All right, so then to add a little bit of shadow again, you can see where your stamp has some little marks, so we're just going to basically kind of go over where those little marks are with a darker color just to give it that look of depth and shading. And if you're using your inks instead of the brushes, it's still the same process where you're going to put a lighter base color down and then you're going to go in and just add your shadows with a little bit darker color. And then we've got some trees here, so we can go in with a green and fill in some color there. While we've got our green out, let's go ahead and just do a little bit of the grass down here on the ground. All right, so we'll go now back to our lighter brown color, and we're going to do the very sides of our swing here. And the top, and then we will go back with our darker brown and do the sides because they will be in a little bit more of a shaded area. So as we add that on top, then that kind of gives the dimension and depth to our swing. And now we're going to continue this process, and you'll watch me, and I may speed it up just a little bit, but I will go ahead and put the brown with the light brown as our base, and then doing some touches for shadows with the darker brown, my leaves at the top as well, and my vines. And with the vines and the flowers you'll see right here, I'll take a purple and we will detail those out. Okay, so now we've got all of our detail coloring in, and at this point, if you decide that you want to go back in and do any more with your basic coloring that you've done for the background, just to sharpen it up a little, this could be the point that you can go in again with your very tiny fine detailed brush. So I'm just going to go in and just give a hair more color, as I can see it a little bit better now that I've got all my other colors in there. And this just kind of allows me to intensify the colors once I've got the picture pretty close to the way I want it to look. So I'm just going to bolden up those colors just a little bit here. And it looks like I forgot one of my little purple flowers. I love these pens because they have such a fine tip end that you can go in and do these very tiny details very easily. Alright, let's go ahead and do just a little bit maybe with the Wilted Violet. Give it just a little more pop of color there. I've always liked my colors to be really pretty and bright and powerful in some of my cards, and other times I want it to be very nice and soft, but I think the sunrise has such an impact that I just love to make those colors so bright. And we'll go in and add just a little bit more to our blue as well. All right. So now we've got our card, all of the colors and details done, and now we're ready to go on and put our little word mark here. Now I have already gone ahead and cut out my little word and the background piece. You don't have to use a background piece if you don't want to, but I decided to do that with this particular one. And you can either use white for your background piece, a different color of cardstock, like a lighter shade of the purple, or a different color that you would like to use. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that it blended really well with the colors that I have here on my card. So I'm going to take the Wilted Violet, and I'm just going to go ahead and do my little background part to my hello, just with a little bit of blending there. Onto that little background piece. And I just realized that when I cut this little background piece out, I actually had a little flawed piece there. So I'm going to actually go ahead and very quickly go ahead and cut out, take off screen here and cut out another background piece so that I've got a very nice smooth piece without a flaw on it. So hold on 1 second for me and I'll go grab that cut piece. Alright, sorry about that. I should have noticed that after I cut that piece out, that it was just a little bit flawed there, a little rough edge on my paper. So basically what I'm doing, so that it kind of blends, like I said, with the colors I've already got there, because I just can't find, I just don't have on hand a piece of purple that is the shade I want. So I'm just going to take my white piece and very lightly add some of the Wilted Violet to make my piece blend better. All right, so now I've just got a little bit of ink on there. And this is where it comes in with our Precision Glue Press by Sweet Poppy, My Sweet Petunia. So this is a really cool instrument here. So what it does is it comes with two tubes. One actually has some glue in it, and it has a very, very, very tiny, and then you just go ahead and pull off a little bit of this glue that's on the end of it, a very, very tiny end. And I don't even think there's any way for me to show you how very tiny it is. And then there's a second bottle that's just got a slightly bigger tip. But this one is great because of the very tiny, delicate areas that you can do. So if you look here, you can kind of see that it's got this little rubbery thing down in the bottom where you actually put the glue gun. It comes with a lid, and you can very easily, let's see, I'll show you what the lid looks like. It's just a regular little cap here that when you get through, you can wipe off your tip and then put this back on for your next use. But the neat thing about this is this little rubber tip that's in there. When you set your glue press back into this thing, that little rubber piece actually keeps the glue flow from coming out. So you can actually store it this way. You don't have to keep putting the lid back and forth onto the glue gun, the glue press, because that little piece inside there is going to keep the glue from coming out. So now we're going to go ahead and start gluing our little hello piece. And I'm going to show you, let me see if I can zoom this in so that you can see it. If it doesn't get too out of focus, let me see if I can focus. There it is. And just so you can see how teeny tiny of a little line that you can get. This can be done on very small spaces. If you want to go across that little tiny part at the bottom, you can do a very, very fine little line of glue. And you can see from my finger how small this is in comparison. So you can do just the absolute finest little line of glue. And then as you can see, I'm just going to put this back down in my press. And now I can set this aside and just use it later on, not have to worry about putting the lid back on it. It's really a great, great thing to do. So now we'll go ahead and pop that little piece that we have just put our glue on onto our background. And there we go. Simple, easy. And the great thing is I don't have big globs of glue that are squishing out underneath it because I couldn't get such a fine line with a regular glue. So I just can't rave enough about how wonderful this is. I know everybody has struggled with that. That's probably one reason why I don't do a whole lot of tiny little intricate cutouts and things like that in some of my projects, because I've never really had a great glue, gun that didn't just put glue everywhere. So this one is just wonderful. And like I said, there's a bigger tip as well that you can, in a bottle with a second bottle with a bigger tip. So if you wanted to do larger areas, then you have that option as well. Okay, so now we're just going to place that down onto our card. And the nice thing about the glue, precision glue gun is that it does come with glue. One bottle of glue and one empty bottle. But you can always, if you've got a glue that you like to use, you can always just fill that up and use it in the press as well. All right, so now let's go ahead and put the card together. So we'll take our frame piece. And again, we can just use our precision glue press. A lot of times in my tutorials you'll see me use the adhesive running tape, but you can use this glue gun to do that process if you like to use your glue. Alright, so now get that mounted onto our frame piece, and I actually got that a little big, so I'm going to place that down, and then let me scoot it just a little bit to get it lined up there. Then I'm going to go and trim it down just a little bit. So when we cut out our card frame, we may want to take that down by about another 1/8 of an inch so that we can have it a little bit more uniform all the way around the edges. All right, and now our final step is to go ahead and mount this to our card. And there we have our finished card project. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. I hope you will give this card a try. And the glue, the precision glue press from the My Sweet Petunia is such a fabulous gun that for gluing that I've just ever run across. I can't even say the words properly because I just love this thing so much. So I hope that you will give this precision glue press a try, and I promise you will really love it. Remember to check out more tutorials on the Design Team page at delbellosdesigns.com. Have a great day.